No doubt about that. Out of bounds, ESPN 1059, The Zone, driven by your next GMC Sierra truck and GMC Yukon Denali. Fowler GMC Pearl Brandon. We welcome in Joe Judge, who coached with Bill Belichick for years with the New England Patriots and is with the Ole Miss football staff now, has Super Bowl rings and so on. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Joe Judge, how many years did you coach with Bill Belichick?
So I was there for a decade, 10 seasons with Bill. So it was a good experience. Got hired in 2012, was there through the 19 season, and actually came back after I had to stop in New York for the 22 and 23 seasons. So worked with him in a variety of roles, everything from special teams, quarterbacks, receivers, worked in the personnel department, did a whole bunch of stuff with him. But it was a great experience working with Bill.
How much reverence did he have for the game, the history of the game, and all the different teams that y'all faced and played, Joe?
Oh, Bill's like the ultimate historian of the game. And we would start off every week. You know, you get the players in on a Wednesday for a game week, and you would start off every Wednesday morning. If you're playing the Bears, you're going to go ahead and learn about, George Halas and the records he held and the significance of the Bears organization, or the Green Bay Packers and how they formed, or he's going to tell you about the ownership structure of, the different teams you're playing. And you're going to learn the history of the rivalry and the players that were involved. And, it was really cool to see the players were learning football and getting the game plan, but they also were learning the history of the game. And it was always very important to him, which became very important to us, that everyone learned about the players that came before you, the coaches that came before you, whether it was in your organization, whose jersey number you're wearing, but especially the teams you're playing, of understanding, there was a lot of football played before you ever were around, and you should have respect for the game and the history of the game. And he did a phenomenal job just bringing everybody up to speed of just the history of the game and educating them on how it's developed into where they are at this moment.
Unbelievable. Joe Judge spent a lot of time with Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots. Tremendous amount of success. He's the best coach, most decorated coach in the history of the NFL. Joe Judge joins us on the Out of Bounds show, talking about his friend and mentor. What about, his dad was a coach at the Naval Academy. I mean, this guy loved history. He loved to weave it into everything that y'all were doing, right? On a day-to-day, weekly basis, Joe?
All the time. I can remember one specific team building drill. He wanted to kind of educate the players on, how good they had it and what it was like before then. I want to say this was 2018. So it was like the last week of OTAs, and then he had a throwback day. And the throwback day was, we did a full day of, players and coaches the way it would have been back in like the, call it the 20s and 30s. We would watch film off the 8mm roll, and, we only had a certain amount of coaches on the field, and everyone went out there and did the same drills they did. So every player and team D lineman are wondering why we're working on punting, and he's explaining how the importance of the kicking game was so much more prominent, back in the day. It was funny. You had guys smoking in the meeting rooms, kind of replicating how it used to be just for some laughs, but it was one of those deals that kind of guys came out of there just loving the experience of it, and got some great pictures and stuff from that day there. But everything he tried to do with the players was really just educating them, whether it was educating them on the game they're going to play, the game plan, the opponent, but then especially on the history of it and just bringing everybody up to speed. And he never missed an opportunity to really bring it in. And you mentioned his dad being at the Navy. We used to joke all the time, if you ever want to get Bill off topic and just ramble and talk and just mention Navy or lacrosse, and you're going to go ahead and change the topic pretty fast.
All right, so he's been a part of 20% of the Super Bowls in the history of the NFL. I mean, so with all the wins that y'all had and he had in New England, plus he won 2 more with Parcells and the Giants and LT, as you know, been in the league since 1975 until a couple of years ago. I mean, this guy's I think you framed it. You can't tell the story of the game or the history of the game without Bill Belichick, right, Joe?
You can't. And just go from his time in New England, you're going to admit multiple decades of the history of the National Football League if you don't talk about him. And not just, the accomplishments he had, but then also the number of rules that were structured differently within the league because of how his defense is played, okay, or how, the tempo of the offense or the building of the roster structure changed, the use of the kicking game, how he did it, in later years. Bill's probably one of the true pure game plan coaches, meaning we went in every week and it was whatever we had to do to win that week, right? Like he didn't care what we did the week before, what our playbook may look like. It was, what does this team do well? How do we, neutralize their strengths and then expose their weaknesses? And there may be game plans where, hey, we're going to go really, really slow. We're going to keep their offense off the field. We're going to run the ball methodically, play good defense, and win the kick game. And there are other games like, hey, we're going to throw the ball. Don't even worry about running the ball. And we got to go fast. So every week was different. Our players were, just very used to, the old adage of adapt or die. That was a motto in our building, and that's the way Bill was. It's just, hey, whatever it's going to take, that's what we're going to do. And we're not going to talk about, how hard it is. We're just going to make sure we get it done, whatever it takes. But again, going back to the history of the league with him, it just everything that he had been a part of for 2 decades and the great players he's able to coach and draft and develop and the coaches under him, he did such a phenomenal job touching all aspects that really rippled throughout the entire league over those decades.
Joe Judge, coached with Bill Belichick at the New England Patriots. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. You had already coached with Nick Saban. So when you go to the Patriots, how long did it take? You knew he was a great coach when you got there. I know that, right? And they already had success. How long did it take you to realize this guy is operating at another level, Joe?
Well, I think they're the 2 best coaches at the time. Yeah. And being able to have a front row seat and work with them, they were both phenomenal. They were both very similar philosophically, how they saw the game, approached the game, and had respect for the game, but they were also very different in their approach. I try to tell people all the time, like, Coach Saban was the best at laying out, here's what we're going to accomplish, here's how we're going to get there, here's what it's supposed to look like, and here's the purpose of what we're doing. And he would tell you all along the way. Coaching with Bill was like getting dropped off in China, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and all of a sudden, after a year and a half, you're speaking Mandarin. You don't even know how it happened.
Right.
So he was very big on giving you tasks and responsibilities, and then you would learn the purpose and go throughout it. And when you first get in that organization, you spend a lot of time swimming and asking the guys who've been there for a while, like, why are we doing this, or what's going on? And they would just tell you, like, hey, don't worry, you'll get it. And eventually you just realize everyone kind of gets it. And, Bill was a very big read between the lines. You're going to kind of learn on the fly, learn on the go, and he's going to take the time to give you the lessons, but he's not going to spell it out for you at the same time. He's going to make sure that you work and kind of really learn the lessons. But as far as like the level he was working on, to me, his use of people was the biggest difference. We would have personnel meetings every week as coaches in the personnel department. I mean, every week, in season, off season, whatever it was. As a young coach, you kind of feel like you're voting who's on the island, right? You're kind of like who I want to make the roster, who I think is going to help my unit. And he was really just checking out what ingredients you had to put the recipe together. And he's listening to your, everything you say throughout, the evaluations. And he would constantly ask, okay, let's try this guy in this role. Let's do a little bit something different with this guy. And he's just looking at, hey, look, we can use this guy in this way. No one else has done that before. How can we have success and put him in a better position? But his use of people was by far the biggest differential to me of what he did in the league. And he was able to take a lot of guys that maybe, have had journeyman type careers and get them in the organization. All of a sudden they just accelerate and go full speed, and they're on top of the league at their position. And that wasn't that the player changes, as he was willing to look past, what they may have struggled with, but then what could help the team and do well, and just go ahead and focus on that. But his personnel evaluation stuff, they were phenomenal.
Joe Judge on the Out of Bounds show. When did you become the special teams coordinator?
So my first year as a coordinator was 15.
Okay.
So I was the assistant 12, 13, and 14. So 15 through 19, and then 23, I oversaw the special teams. And then along the way, what Bill does is he kind of just starts out with a small spoon, keeps giving you more and more and more, right? So as you're coaching the special teams, they'll say, hey, you're also going to go in the offensive line room. You're coaching special teams, you're also going to coach the receivers. You're coaching special teams, you're also going to go ahead and coach the quarterbacks with Josh and do some things like that. So he did such a good job with all of us of just, if you showed you could handle responsibility, he'd just keep piling more and more on your plate. And before you knew it, you were in positions, some of us have run half the building. And that was really a blessing for us.
We only see, you spent thousands of hours with him. Yep. So we only get, snippets, especially when because I think he's hilarious in press conferences. Okay. And he's kind of grumbling, but getting out what he wants and so on. And he's whatever. Does he let his guard down? And let's say it's April, May, June, Joe, where y'all are still working, but you're not getting ready to play the Steelers or something like that. Is he somebody who can, talk about going to the beach or some kind of food he had 3 days before or something like that? A good dinner?
When you step away from a press conference, Mike, I mean, he's as personal as anyone you're ever going to be around. I mean, he's a great dude. He really is. And I've told a lot of these guys, I've worked for different people and worked with different people and different staffs who they might could tell you that you have kids. They might could tell you that you are married, but they don't really know much more about it. Bill not only knew, your wife and kids' names, he'd reference them in meetings. Someone drop a pass and he'd be like, I mean, Amber can catch this ball. And the team all knew who he was talking about. And they'd come through, Christmas time or kids being around, and like he'd have just deep personal conversation with them, was absolutely great with them. The other thing too that I don't think people really realize is, the culture of accountability and ownership. I mean, there wasn't a day that went by, and he would say it all the time. He'd say, I'm going to screw things up more than anybody. And he'd stand in front of a team meeting and just be like, yeah, I screwed that up. He wouldn't say the word screwed, but he'd let everyone know, like, I screwed that up. And that really kind of let all the younger assistant coaches and then the players, we all knew, like, hey, look, when you screw something up, own it. Don't worry about getting corrected. Don't worry about pointing the finger. Just own that you made the mistake and then move on. But he was like the first guy to always say when it was his mistake or something he should have done better. So throughout the entire building, you never had excuse makers within the team, with coaches, with players, whatever it was. Something happened, something came up. Everyone was quick to just go ahead and own it and then correct it and move on. And that was it. It was kind of over with pretty fast. But, so look, sometimes he may be wearing a GM hat, sometimes a head coach hat. You may catch him at some different times where he looks unapproachable, but the second you kind of hit him, I mean, his eyes light up and he just turns right back into just build a person.
Right.
And he's got to compartmentalize a lot of things, a lot of responsibilities he has. But as far as like stepping away, what kind of person he is, I mean, I love the dude. He's phenomenal. He's been great to me, great to my family. And I think probably the best podcast to kind of reflect is Edelman's got that podcast. My kids listen to it all the time. And you listen to Jules and those guys tell all those funny stories. And it is. It's like you're talking about the stories about the dude who, grinded you and worked you hard and all these kind of like different lessons you learned. But at the same time, they're all laughing about it now, right? Out of appreciation.
Right.
So you can hear from the players and some of the coaches that have been on themselves. Like, we've all got war stories of being with Bill, all of us. Everyone's got a different story from something like, I can't believe we did that at one time. But at the same time, we all laugh about it now. Like, man, he had a purpose.
Joe Judge on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line talking the GOAT, Bill Belichick, on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Speaking of Edelman, why was he one of many players that y'all were able to bring in and get every ounce of talent out of him? Why did he work in the Patriots organization like he did, Joe?
Well, he had some physical gifts. He was extremely strong. He had really good quickness. He had some gifts to build on. But when I think of Jules, I think about just toughness, like just relentless toughness. And that's the way the guy really was. I mean, I can just tell a story. I remember 2019, he had some kind of a rib injury. It was like a separation of the cartilage or something. I would watch him every Wednesday just so he could practice. Because most guys in the league with an injury like that would kind of just say, I can't practice every day. He would get a shot, drove into his ribs every Wednesday and then every Sunday before the game. I swear this thing looked like a butcher knife. I mean, it had to be 7 inches long, and they would just jam it in there. And he would just wince at you and just smile. And he'd go, hey, bub, you want the next shot? But this dude would just kind of like refuse to let anyone he refused to let anyone tell him he couldn't do it. So whether that was coming in the league as a punt returner, developing as a receiver, playing on defense when he did, Jules is a guy who always took on a challenge. And, I think about the way he approached everything. In that league, it's not like college. You're not keeping 14, 15 receivers on your roster at different times. So when he saw anyone being brought in, you could just see those lights in his eyes flip on like, okay, that's competition. And he was going to do everything he could to, one, establish dominance, and then two, outperform you. And, that dude to me was just kind of the epitome of that program and what guys did. And he was a pleasure to coach. Now, I say he was a pleasure to coach, and Jules will be the first one to tell you, and I'll tell him too, like, he was as hard-headed as can be, and he was as challenging to coach as anyone I've ever been around, but he was such a rewarding player to coach because of how hard he worked to get it all done. But again, I would say too, with all of his strengths, he had some limitations too, but if he wasn't as mentally tough and hard-headed as he is, he would never survive in the league. That's really just, the way he was a person that gave him such a great career.
All right. I want to switch gears real quick. I want to talk about, if you're cool with it, what it's like to coach Trinidad. Trinidad Chambliss had an amazing year at Ole Miss. The guy is worth the price of the ticket, turning on the TV. He gets thrown in there. Y'all do an unbelievable job with him. And so he doesn't make mistakes, Joe. This guy's, talk about his football IQ and just what he brings to the table as QB1. You've coached great. You've coached great. Dart was unbelievable. And of course you've been around Brady and many others, but right. Why is this young man so damn good at playing quarterback?
Well, I think the first thing you said is when you talk about the quarterback position, to me, it's not so much about the highlight plays as it is about keeping your team out of bad positions. And you look at the production he had this year and only the 3 interceptions, and those are the ones he talks about all the time, and those passes that come up in conversations. But he does a phenomenal job of having vision on the field. And we talk all the time with quarterbacks about seeing in front of the crossers or any outbreaking route. You'll see underneath the outbreaking route to make sure there's not a dangerous defender who can go ahead and make a play on the ball. I think he does that about as well as anyone I've ever been around, is he sees the field and he understands how to anticipate it. He's got a very quick release. He processes it very quick, so the ball comes out fast before defenders can close tight windows, and he's been able to squeeze a lot of, tight window throws, especially like 3rd and 4th down throughout the season. But his vision on the field is really elite. It really is. And he has the athleticism to extend plays, make plays with his feet, to really make plays on the run down the field. But he's not a guy that gets back there and takes one read and thinks I got to get out of dodge. He's going through the full progression. And, one thing about Trent is, he's a sponge. You talk with him throughout the week and you give him the coaching points and tell him what to focus on and go through the process of preparation, and he's going to do it. I mean, he's going to do exactly what you say. You tell him, hey, we're reading this guy for this play, and this is how we're going to read this concept. He's going to go straight through how you told him to. And I'll say this, there's also a few times, talking about his vision on the field, we've had concepts and we'll say, hey, Trent, this route right here, this isn't really alive. This is really to occupy the flat defender, and we're going to set this guy up. And all of a sudden, the first time you call him in the game, he rips the ball you said isn't really going to be alive. And he comes to the sideline just smiling. He goes, it was open. He just feels it and gets the ball out there. But he's an absolute pleasure to coach. He really is. He comes in every day, eager to learn. He's got a great attitude. He's a tremendous leader on the team. And I think he bonds with everybody on the team. He's a very genuine person, and they see that. And when you talk about the culture of the team, that we had and that what Coach Golding's putting together, you talk about just the culture of these guys, he's really a catalyst for that because he brings everyone together with his personality and who he is, that everyone feels genuinely a part of a team in a time of college football where it's a lot of mercenary type feels, right?
Right.
So it's very quick for guys, come in that short period of time and put his stamp on it and bring everybody else in the fold.
Georgia couldn't get him on the ground, Joe. I mean, you're sitting there on the sideline. You're with him every day. The plays that he made in that game were magnificent. And what were you thinking as he was running around and Georgia couldn't get him on the ground?
Well, let's not pretend like we're all sitting here like that's how it was drawn up. I mean, look, honestly, every coach sitting there going, don't, no. Okay, good play. Here we go. So it's, you kind of transition quickly. And, when you got a player like that, you don't ever want to put handcuffs on him or paralyze him in how he thinks. You got to let him be aggressive. It's really more about teaching the constructs of, okay, let's keep in mind it's 2nd and long. Let's make sure we have positive yards here. It's 3rd down. Hey, we're going to go from a 4th if it's 4th and whatever it may be. Let's not lose yards here. But as far as him just going out there and improvising, making plays, that's not something you coach. That's something he has just ability-wise, and you got to let players be players, and he makes a lot of big plays that way.
Man, thank you for your time today. Congratulations on all your success, and we appreciate you jumping on with such short notice. Thank you, my man.
No problem, man. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.
Joe Judge, Ole Miss football quarterback coach, among other things, was with Belichick for over a decade with the Patriots, Super Bowl rings, and got to coach some of the best in Brady and Edelman and many, many others. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. He's been a tremendous asset to the Ole Miss football program. Trinidad Chambliss, incredible. And he's obviously an outstanding young man. But to have that kind of football life IQ at that young of an age, holy smokes. But that was fun. Jackson Meadows, how about that? Joe Judge.
Solid.
What about him talking about what a historian Belichick was on the game and how he wanted to make sure that the staff and the players knew who they were playing, the organization, what they were about, what the city was about, and some of the historical, facts and so on behind that particular, if they're playing the Steelers,
right,
or they're playing the Ravens, or they're playing the Dolphins, or whatever it is.
Got a big feeling that Belichick believes in the whole history repeats itself. It definitely does. I think if I can learn what's happened, I'll know what's coming.
Yeah.
The way he thinks, I guess. The way I think it.
And that's your team.
My boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Like to win.
Oh, I loved watching the Patriots play.
That was lit.
For years.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people disliked him because they won. I never got into that. I loved watching him play. I was fascinated with how Belichick would set up the 53-man roster and slot everybody for what they could do and how they could do it. Because as Joe said, it was all about roster building. It is today.
It still is, yes.
With what, Golding's doing and Lane's doing and everybody else. That's the kind of stuff I like to nerd out on.
It's just he does it so much better.
I'd rather read a book like GM. That's a great book on football. Those are the behind the scenes on how you set your team up is fascinating to me. You think most fans are like that? I think so. Probably.
Majority, I think a lot of them are. Yeah.
It's
like transactions. I mean, you watch it; it's fun.
I know it falls into evaluating and recruiting or drafting, depending on which league you're in,
right?
NFL or college.
No.
But
there's a reason we love the draft so much.
Yeah, I think you're right.
There's a reason
because it's
free agency.
Well, and it's also, as humans, we are obsessed with the unknown.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, there's a reason why Elon is obsessed with space. Right. There's a reason why you're obsessed with your first-round pick that you believe is going to be X, Y, and Z, right? Or your second-round pick.
Sure.
Or your portal class. Let's say the top 2 or 3 players you believe, 4 or 5, you believe are going to do this, this, and this.
Expectations.
We have big expectations for you.
I would, too, if I were you.
Yeah. Well, you made it here before me.
How about that?
I mean, you're the reason why we're on the air today.
That's a fact.
So some people may say that's scary. I think it's a good thing.
I think it's both.
Hey, you got brought up last night at dinner.
Oh, God.
People like you. I don't know why.
I don't either.
And they're because you're funny and goofy and smart and have all this stuff. They want to know, is Jackson really da 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 da? I'm like, yeah. Or sometimes I go, no. He's. I actually give you props. I'll go like he's super smart.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Do you like Burgers Blues Barbecue?
Oh, B3.
All right. Lunch today powered by Burgers Blues Barbecue Dogwood Flowwood. Burgers Blues Barbecue B3 Dogwood Flowwood. Smash burgers and blue plates. Giddy up. We'll see you there. B3 Dogwood Flowwood. And the show is brought to you by Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. Superior.ms. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.